So here's my pendulum, and hopefully when you open it, it already opens in this layout where you have perspective, side view, and then your graph editor on the bottom. I will say that the animation for this, I've stressed how important it is for us to animate to an actual camera instead of these views. This is one exception. This pendulum is designed to be animated in a side view. So if I right click and if I say right view, you can see it's in the right view. As opposed to a camera that has a 3 coordinates, X, Y, and Z. We're just using X and Y. So the reason for that is this rig. Let's see if I'm gonna also hope you notice that I made a con layer for you guys already. So if I turn that on, you can see your controls. And I'll just kind of go through them one at a time. This is our main control. And even though it shows the rotate X, or sorry, the translate X, if I pull on it, you can see it doesn't go in that axis. And in fact, over here in the channel box, you can see there's only translate Y, Z, and then rotate X. You can move it in those axes in Y and Z, but you can't move it in X. But you can rotate it in X, not in X or Z. I'm sorry, you can rotate it in X, but not Y or Z. Anyways, so as we go down the rig, you can see all you have access to in the channel box is rotate X, and then rotate X. So hopefully this will make it easier so that you're not trying to animate it in the Z when it's not going in the Z or the Y. The one thing I also want to stress is make sure that you do not animate the root. Again, the root, this master control at the bottom, obviously you can, as you see, you can move it in all 3 axes, all coordinates, but you don't want to. This is just to bring it into your scene, and you already have it as the scene, so you don't need to move this at all. So yeah, if I right click on cons and I say select objects, you can see that just the 4 controls above highlights, but not the master control, the triangle at the bottom, because it's not part of the rig that I want you to animate. The other thing, so if you do, so this is the normal pendulum, this style, this type. If you select this bottom one and you want to change it, you have 2 other options. You can either say mace, so it's got this big old medieval looking spike on the bottom, or you can go to UFO, and then the top looks like a UFO, and then the bottom, it has this arm. One thing I'll say about the arm, though, it's important to understand is you can't open and close. It's not rigged for the fingers of this hand, claw, whatever, to open and close. So you have to be clever about how you animate it if you wanted to pick a ball up or something like that. What else was I going to show you? So once I've established that I want to use this, maybe the UFO, it's entirely up to you. You can pick from those 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get into any more about animation, as far as moving this character, talking about settings, let's go back to settings. So make sure that you have auto keyframe toggle on. This little those little circular arrows with a plus sign in the middle, that's red. And then also go to settings. I think it was Morgana, I can't remember, asking about playback speed. So yes, 24 FPS times 1. Also update view, make sure that's set to all. I'm going to go to undo and make sure that that's on and set to infinite. The last thing I'm going to check is making sure that animation settings and then animation is set to weighted tangents for tangents, and then default in tangent is set to clamped, and default out tangent is set to stepped. So that's going to make sure that when you're animating, when you start to move this character around in space and in time, it's going to animate it as stepped, as opposed to like in blocking, as opposed to using the spline tools. We'll get to spline, but it's really important that everyone starts these animations in stepped. So I'm going to save that. Does anyone have any questions about the settings? All right, so I have an all button that works over here in the layers editor. I have my controls. I've picked my character style. So what's the next thing I need to do? What do I need to do with each project before I start animating? There's a couple of things, not just one thing.
Set project, like make
Very
folders.
excellent. Yeah. So let's go over to File, and I'm going to go down to, before I set the project, I'm going to say Project Window. I need to create a new project, and this is what I want you to name it: A3_pendulum with a capital P and a capital A. And I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it again. But for you guys, you would hit New, and then type in A3_pendulum. And also, you can see that because I'm doing it this way, it's automatically setting it to the correct path. Documents, Maya projects, and then it's going to be /A3pendulum. And then of course my Maya files are going to go into the scenes folder. So I say accept. I'm going to say cancel because I've already done it, but you guys go ahead and say accept. Okay, so I've set my I've created my project. Now what do I do? I don't know who said it, but yeah, it's a good idea just to make sure, just to set it as well. So I'm going to go to File, Set Project, right under Project Window. I'm going to say Set Project, and you can see that mine is already set. But if you haven't done this, you just click on it once. Don't double click. Just select your project that you're wanting to set, and you can see it pops up here in the directory. If you double click on it, it goes into that folder. So you just want to select the project name, not go into it. So just single click and then say set. All right, so we've set the project. Now what do we do? And we're going to do this with every single project.
Safety frame?
Yes, thank you. Good job. So to set the safety frame, take me through those steps, Hunter. What do I do to set the safety frame? What's the first thing I need to do to set the safety frame?
You need to put a keyframe for all of the positions at 0.
Okay, and how would you recommend I do that? I'm trying to get really specific because I've been seeing a lot of mistakes in this area.
I think, does S only work for if you've already keyed on that?
Nope.
Okay. Then
Yeah,
you
it
hit
works if.
S.
Okay, so I have to hit S right now? Am I ready to hit S, or am I missing something? If I hit S right now, it tells me warning, whatever, let's see.
Oh, you don't have anything selected.
No
yet.
object selected, yeah. So how do
Okay.
I select my controls?
You would go to your controls layer and select objects.
Perfect, that's what I'm missing. And maybe it's not so much from this class. Maybe I was thinking more of the morning class, but yeah, make sure when you're setting the keyframes, including the safety frame at 0, you right click on your cons layer and say select objects. Instead of, I saw this morning, they made a marquee. And what's wrong with this?
It's also including the main controller.
Yes, including the master control at the bottom, which we don't want to animate. It's also including the geometry. We never want to animate the geometry. We don't even want to set keys for the geometry. We just want to set keys and animate the controls. So instead of making a marquee, don't make a marquee because you're gonna select other stuff. Unless you're just trying to select just the arm controls, you can make a smaller marquee to select those by themselves. but don't make a big marquee that's going to select everything. That's what the all button's for. You right click and say select objects, and you're very specifically selecting only the stuff that you should be. Okay, so we have everything selected. So now are we ready to hit S?
I think so. I'm
Yes,
not sure.
you're absolutely right. So we confidently hit S, and you can see it keys it at 0. So this is our default frame. All right, so we set our safety frame. What do we do now?
Don't you don't you like move the little dial on the time graph to 1?
Yeah, very good. So I'm gonna hold down Alt and hit the greater than sign once, and it gets me to frame 1. Now what do I do?
And then you just move that black tab over to the 1 as well, right?
Move the black tab. Which black tab?
The black tab next to the 1 that you just the
Well,
one that says 0
the one that says 0. This right here.
on the time graph. Where I mean,
So if I
No.
move this, anything I move in the time slider also moves the graph editor.
or the graph editor. That's what I meant to call it. So the
Oh,
graph
so
editor
okay.
mo-
So I held down Alt and hit greater than, and you can see that moved. That's the
Mhm.
same thing as essentially grabbing that yellow line and just dragging it. Oh, guys, I forgot one more thing that we learned this morning. So, and I don't remember if you guys are having the issue, but some of the students are accidentally animating on numbers that are other than whole numbers. So like 4.5 or whatever. And we have an assistant in the morning class. Her name is Saja. She figured out she went to a forum and figured out, I knew we could do this. It's just been a while, and they change things around every time they version up in Maya. But now to set that so you only land on whole numbers, you go to edit, snap options, and then make sure this says snap items to multiples of 1. And then I guess you just leave the time range all and snap times. But yeah, make sure this says 1, not 0.5, not anything else. Just keep it at 1 as a whole number, and then say snap keys. So I'm going to zoom in here with my graph editor. In my graph editor, I can see all these other numbers, 2.2, 2.4. But as I drag, you can see that it doesn't land on them. It only lands on the whole numbers. So make sure you go ahead and do this: edit, snap, options, and then change this, whatever number this is, just make sure it says 1, and then say snap keys. Hopefully that'll help some of us clean up, because I remember, I don't remember if it was this class or morning, but it was like 1.995 or something, and there was another frame right at 2. So it just gets really confusing. If you leave them on those whole numbers, it won't let you animate on all those little decimal numbers. Good. Okay, so I'm at frame 1. Now what do? I still have all my controls selected.
I would say you just want to like disclude frame 0. So what you would do is you grab at the bottom the
Uh-huh.
like square
Mhm.
and drag it to the right. So it's just 1.
Yeah. You could do that, or you can see it as I did that, it changed this number.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole point of that, thank you. That was Morgana. Yeah. So after you've set that safety frame, you just remove it from sight, because that's not to be animated. We're not going to see that in Play Blast. That's just for emergency use only, right? So yeah, we just don't show it. Good. So I've removed my safety frame. Now what do? By the way, I'm not sure, but I'll check to make sure. But I want to say that this is probably going to be at about 120 frames also. So I'll give that to you guys. I'll just say I'm going to set this to, instead of 300, which was the default or whatever, I'm going to set it to 120. Okay, so we have our time frame. Now what do? I'm on frame 1. if I zoom into frame 1, what's missing at frame 1?
A new key.
Yeah. I have everything selected, and maybe this is obvious, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that they're keying everything at 0, and then also keying everything at frame 1. So I just hit S again. And I've keyed everything at 1, but I'm not going to move everything at 1. And I'm now, even though I've keyed everything, now I can be more selective. I'm just going to select the main control. And like I did in the morning class, maybe I don't want to start in the default pose, right? I want to start my animation maybe higher. Maybe there's a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe there's already some rotation going on, or maybe it's tilted this way, and then this way, and then this way. I don't know. Whatever works for you, whatever is going to tell your story. We just don't want to start in our default pose at frame 1. In the morning class, I just started with this character off screen. So I dragged him off in the Z axis. And then, so frame 1, he's off screen. And then at frame, I think I said frame 10 or so. I don't know. I think maybe 20, whatever. At frame 20, he's on screen. But, and maybe he's going to stop like right in the middle. He's trying to be right in the center. So he's going to zoom in here, and I'll grab these controls and I'm going to put them back to zeros. Oops, be careful not to select the geometry. So I'm going to set these all back to 0 for a second. And now I'm going to rotate them together. So he's zipping in here, and this arm is just dragging behind, just nice overlapping action like we've been talking about. That happens at 20. So frame 1 to frame 20, he comes in. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 frames later, he rotates the other direction because this arm now swings the other direction. So I'm going to swing it this way. Maybe not too much. Maybe I'll just do it a little bit. And he's also, I'm going to reposition him a little bit. He's trying to get in the center of the screen. So he kind of shoots past it a little bit too much at 10, and then he comes back at 20, or what does it say, 30. And then at 40, maybe this time he's actually at the center at Z. And he's still settling down, so I'm just going to rotate him a little bit. He's a little off kilter still, and it's because of this arm is still just loosely, it's kind of a heavy hand at the bottom, so it's just kind of settling down. And I'll just keep doing that back and forth. He's just settling down. Maybe there's a ball at the bottom that he grabs, something, I don't know, I'll come up with some story. But you can see I still have a whole bunch of frames that I can animate. But as I just use the greater than less than signs, 1 to 20 to 30 to 40. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me go back and use the select all button. Okay, so now I have everything that I've keyed, and as I go through here, you can see that everything is keyed. There's a new pose for every piece of the model, the rig. I don't see in other words, the opposite of that is this. So if I go back to select objects and I'm clicking through here, frame 1, everything moved together. 25, you can see 25, that moves by itself. That would not be a key pose. If I want that to be a key pose, I need to find a new pose for everything. Even if it's just a subtle change, I don't want the rest of the body to feel frozen. And then at 30, he flips around. And then I can just go back and forth. So maybe I accidentally did that at 25. I'm just going to delete that key at 25. And now I'm back to clean animation. So working this way where you can see that all of my poses come in as stepped. I don't see any spline. I don't see any of this stuff. I mean, eventually we will get here. We'll get to spline, but we want to control this. We're not going to start here. We're going to start with a bunch of nice stepped poses. So I'm going to undo that. Does anyone have any questions about that working method? I want to make it really clear. Everyone is required to work in stepped. And also, yeah, make sure you don't show these guys your default position at 0 or at 1. At 1, you pose him out to start telling your story, or maybe he's off screen and comes in, however you want to do it. Any questions? All right, so the other thing is, before we actually start animating this character, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to minimize Maya for a second, and I'm going to go to the canvas. Oh, I think I want to close canvas. I'll open canvas up again, but oh, I'm done with that too. Actually, I'm gonna stop the video here because I forgot to have canvas open.